The Service Titan. I just wanted to take a quick minute to kind of go over how the material price book's set up. So if we look at this one fitting right here, we're looking at a 2-inch PVC DWV 90 elbow. Okay, so that fitting using this code, this PBWV9K, that's one fitting. So if we look at this fitting, I can see I have it in 3 different categories. Okay, and it's still all the same fitting. Now the same fitting I'm sourcing at 3 different supply houses. So this is the supply house's individual part numbers. I just happen to mirror the supply house's part number for the ease of the initial setup. And I can see what the different prices are. So this supply house is obviously giving me the most competitive price, which is why it's set up as my primary vendor. So if I look at my uh, field side, what the technicians would see in the iPad, I can see I have 3 different categories here. I have plumbing, HVAC install or service, excuse me, and HVAC install. Now, all these 3 different categories are also linked to specific business units. This would be under the plumbing business unit, the HVAC service business unit, and the HVAC install business unit. So if I navigate through the plumbing business unit, I can see that that fitting that I referenced earlier is right here, this PDWV9K. That's a very, very standard plumbing fitting. Go back to my categories and I look at my HVAC service, I can see here that you will also find that fitting PDWV9K. That fitting is also here because my HVAC service and my plumbing the business units or departments, whatever, use that same exact fitting. And if I look in the HVAC install section, I'll be able to navigate through it here and find that PVC 2-inch PVC elbow, that PDWV9K, is also used in my HVAC install department. So all 3 of my different departments and all 3 of my business units use the same fitting. So what Service Titan is recommending I'm doing and to do in order to export my price book is put the same fitting into my material essentially under 3 different codes. However, when I have to deal and manage price increases, like I don't want to have to find it in 3 different spots. Like this same fitting will be constantly ordered from the same supply house unless prices increase, change, and if it were to go down to whatever, $1 from this supply house, then I would just change the primary vendor. For me to set up the same fitting 3 different times simply so I can export my price book by business unit, it just seems to me that it really doesn't make sense and it's not like a functional or efficient way to do it. So again, this one fitting, I have it displaying in 3 different categories inside my material book, which each one of these categories is a representation of, I guess, the main category, excluding, like, not including the subcategories. So this is in my plumbing business unit, my HVAC service business unit, and my HVAC install business unit, but it's still the same fitting. So I just really want to drive that point home. This is how I set up my entire material book because I don't want the same fitting represented 3 different times in my book. There's not 3 different fittings, it's the same fitting. So I hope that gives a better understanding of how I would want and expect Service Titan to work. This is very standard across the industry. I mean, if we just jump back in, if we happen to open up an electrical division per se, like all my departments manage some type of electrical things, like wire ties, wire nuts, wire, very, very standard basic. So just don't understand, like every Service Titan company that has more than one business unit is always going to have overlapping material, always. Like it's just not feasible for it not to. I just want to make sure that some of that, like, I mean, if we look at these like ultra generic things, like the techs need like batteries, right? So there's just all these different very, very generic things. A lot of things in here are specific to plumbing, but like dust masks, like my techs need dust masks. So across all the industries. So just I really want to kind of paint the picture that having repetition of the same material product within per business unit, it really just makes it incredibly hard to manage moving forward with price increases and change of vendor purchases. Again, in this scenario, with this fitting, my code in my price book, if that price were to change and it was set up 3 different times for each business unit, I'd have to find that 3 different times in lieu of just clicking one radio button and making everything change. So I hope this helps give some clarity about how things operate. I really want to get through this. I really slightly understand what you're saying, how I can't export per business unit, but just the functionality and the big picture operation, it just doesn't seem to make sense. And I thought giving this video would maybe help provide a little clarity. If anyone would like to call, like a developer or someone, call and discuss this further, I'd be happy to give some of my time. But my immediate need is I need to export my price book by a business unit to do a price increase officially as of yesterday. All right, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you found this valuable.